afternoon. Before I start, I want to pass up some pictures. Just so you guys don't get confused, because I do have them stapled. In the first packet, we'll give you some pictures of Wyatt. He's an English Bulldog. As you're going through it, you'll see that I have labeled some of them. Okay, you'll get the victim's wounds, pictures in here with stitches and when stitches were out and healing, and then the area of the community where it occurred. The second one, packet and stuff, is the compliance with the order of conditions for Mr. and Mrs. Barnett's house. And I'll pass these forward too. But like I can continue. Okay. So on April 27, 2016, Animal Control received a bite report dated May 26, 2016 from Patient First Medical Facility. Mark Severe, of 11-year-old Layla Duran of 1318 Park Hall South in Laurel, was bitten by a bulldog living at 320 Park Hall South. At the time, no owner information was listed on the report until later. On April 27, 2016, attempted to contact the victim via phone with no answer. Left message for them to contact the bite office about the bite incident. On the same day, had the victim's property posted to have the parents contact the bite department. During that investigation, I proceeded to look up for any prior history of the address listed for the suspect owner. None was found at the address listed on the report. I then received a call via phone from the victim's mother, Leandra Duran, and she advised that her children were playing on the sidewalk and the dog was loose and went after her daughter and biting her feet. She advised that she was seen at Patient First and received 12 to 15 sutures. I asked Mrs. Leandra to send in a statement and photos of her daughter's wounds. On April 28th of 2016, Animal Control contacted the health department to request for medical records on the victim to confirm the sutures, the fact that because she was a minor. On April 29th, 2016, I responded out to the suspect's owner's address of 320 Park Hill, Park Hall South in Laurel, to impound the dog, a bulldog, for quarantine and possible public safety investigation. At my time of arrival, no one appeared to be home, so I posted a property advising the owner to contact my office about the bite that was reported. Also on April 29, 2016, I did receive a call from the dog owner, Mrs. Cassie Barnett, about the bite incident. She advised that she was the owner of the English Bulldog named Wyatt. I advised Mrs. Barnett that Wyatt was involved in a severe bite to a child, and during the investigation it was determined that he was off his property when the bite occurred to the child, and she received sutures for her wounds. Ms. Barnett was cooperative and brought Wyatt in under public safety for inflicting a severe bite and for quarantine. She sent in a statement of the bite incident with records on Wyatt. I advised Ms. Barnett a dangerous order could be issued. On May 1st, 2016, Animal Control received photos and a brief statement from Leandra Duran and pictures of her daughter's wounds. During this investigation, Ms. Barnett advised of other children that were present and sent in addresses of these children, and their properties were posted with no response. On May 4th, 2016, I spoke to the victim, Layla Duran, with her mother present via phone, and I asked her what happened. She advised that she and her cousin, Ashante, whom is 10 years old, her friend Naya, whom is 13, were walking back to their house, which is next to the dog owner's home, and they saw the dog in the backyard. Then they were in the street. She then heard Shanti's brother yelling that the gate was open and the dog got loose. All the kids started running, and the dog ran after her off the property, started to bite her foot. She started yelling for help. Her mom came to the door, and the owner of the dog came out, and they got the dog off of her. On May 6, 2016, Animal Control received a letter via email from the landlord of Cassie Barnett giving them permission to have the dog on the property with the conditions that were going to be placed. On May 9, 2016, received an email from Leandra, the victim's mother, giving information to reach the cousin's mother and Naya's mother to contact them. There were several children present, as you see me going through, that was out there at the time of this bite. I placed calls into the cousin's mother, advised the mother of Shanti, Susan Lemissier, that I needed to speak with her daughter and that she advised that she was in school, and I explained that we can make arrangements to speak with her. No other response from Mrs. Lemissier. I placed a call into Naya, left a message also for her to contact my office with no response at this time. On May 10, 2016, Animal Control issued a dangerous order, Mrs. Barnett, on Wyatt in means to protect the public. Ms. Barnett filed an appeal. On May 13, 2016, the administrator, Robin Catlin, and I discussed the order that was issued for the owner, Mrs. Barnett, and had concerns of the fencing requirements And we would revise our order to allow the existing 4-foot chain link fence with an automatic closing gates to prevent escape and padlocks on the other, and all other conditions would remain the same as in the original order. On May 13, 2016, we received confirmation from State Farm Insurance that Mrs. Barnett did obtain an insurance policy to protect incidents with her dog. On May 16, 2016, I responded to 320 Park Hill South in Laurel for a final inspection of the property, took photos, however needed approval from the administrator since the muzzle was not purchased at the time. It had to be ordered and approve the gates with automatic clips and bungee cords to allow the fence to slam shut upon opening. We did allow that and it was approved. May 18, 2016, I received a call from the rescue that Wyatt came from a Ginny Sorbez, the president of Paws for Life. In speaking with Mrs. Sorbez, she advised that she did get the message to contact her, and I advised her about Wyatt and why he was returned to the, or asked her why was he returned to the rescue. She explained that Wyatt came from a family that he lived with his whole life. They had approximately 5 children in the home. Wyatt didn't get along with the 7 to 8-year-old boy in the home, but she did not go into further why. She explained that he was adopted out from her shelter to a family with an older children, approximately 17 years of age or older. Wyatt then grabbed that 17-year-old's shoe and wouldn't let go of him. No skin was broken at that time. Lastly, she advised that Mrs. Barnett finally adopted Wyatt in understanding she was a dog handler and she could train him. She advised that she did receive a call from Mrs. Barnett explaining about the bite he was involved in and wanted to return him. She advised Mrs. Barnett she did not have a kennel available for him. Also, to add on here that it's not in my IR and stuff, we went out and did a full investigation extra on this case for the fact that we had multiple children present. In my interview and the investigation with dealing with Mrs. Barnett, there was a possibility of one of the children opened up the gate from what she claimed to me, okay? She did advise me she was understanding of Wyatt's issues, okay? We went out, myself, Officer Herbert also went out. We spoke to all the children that were involved in this incident during the time that this all occurred. We had no evidence after everything was said and done, speaking with these children's parents and to the children themselves, of nobody actually physically opening up the gate and let this dog out. The only thing we do know is that the dog was off the property at the time of this bite to the child. And just to let you know, as far as this is my victim, this is her cousin who was present also. I did receive confirmation from one other parent, advised that they could not be here due to the fact of their workplace.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions of Officer Thomas? Okay, did any of...
She can give her side of the story, is pretty much consistent of what I said and stuff, and then Shante can give her
Okay,
side. If you guys have any
Wyatt, would
questions
you
for
mind
her.
telling us what happened?
My friend Naya.
Alright.
It's okay.
It's okay. You don't have to be worried about it. You're not in trouble or anything, so.
Yeah, she thinks she was in trouble.
No, you're not in
It's
any
fine.
trouble.
Shante, you want to tell a story? Because I know you were there riding your bike. You want to tell them a story?
Yes.
Go ahead and tell.
Okay, so it was in the afternoon, and I came down here with my friend Alejandro, and so basically what happened. So we were all at the house at Layla's house in the front porch. All Naya, Tyshawn, me, and his other boy's friend that we know, and his friends and everything. So we were all there. Then we were about to go get Devin, our friend, up the hill. And then when we went to go knock on the door. He wasn't here. Then we went down the hill. Then I was the first one down because I had my bike, and I was the first one down there because I was going fast on my bike. Then when I turned my head aside, her and our daughter, they were turning around getting something, and they left the gate open. Then when my other friend came, then he yelled out, "The gate is open." Then when everybody went that spot, they just splattered out. And Tyshawn and Naya, they went to their house. And Layla, she just stand there and like know the dog because before that, they were walking their dogs. Then she called Layla to go pet the dog, and the dog was kind of nice to Layla. So when everybody just splattered out, she just stand there and everything, and the dog just came up to her because she already knows the dog, and the dog just came out of nowhere and just bite me.
Okay, who was it left the gate open? Do you know? Okay, anybody have any other questions? Okay, would you like to?
Like Shanti said, she went to Devin's house, and I was the only person staying at my house because I know my mom would get mad at me. So when they came back, I started walking up to my friend Naya to talk to her, and that's when Shanti's friend called that the gate was open. I didn't know who it was until now. And then the dog came up, I was shocked, and then I started running, and the dog got my leg, my feet, and I got him off the first time, but then he got my other leg. I tried to get him off, but it was no use, so I called for help. Nobody listened until my mom came out, and so did my grandma, and then my mom came out first, and then Miss Barnett came, and then last but not least, my grandma came, and they got all of the dog out, and soon we went to patient first, and that's when I got my stitches and stuff.
Okay. How are you feeling now? You feeling better? Good. Anyone have any questions?
Nancy, I want to add, just so you guys can kind of get a geological area of this. One of the pictures I showed you was basic behind my van and stuff is pretty much, these guys live right next to each other, okay? Naya and her brother basically lives 2 houses up diagonally across, okay, from Mrs. Barnett. Devin is way up the street, but he wasn't available at the time. He wasn't with the kids when this all took place. Alejandro is the only one that lives not in the neighborhood on that street. He lives in the neighborhood community, but he lives on another street that was present as well. So it was pretty much, you know, the kids all kind of live right within
Next
like
to
a
each other.
triangle
Yeah.
of each other.
Okay. Mrs. Duran, do you have anything to add?
That evening I was in my house cooking because the kids was outside, and until now I blame myself if that happened to Bella because my husband doesn't want the kids to go outside to play. And I know it's summertime, and then I saw other kids outside playing. I told her, I said, okay, Lela, because what is the girl name? She's 13, but that's Lela age because we've been living there now for 2 years. And then I'm the one who keeps like asking her, can you go introduce yourself? Maybe you can be friends with them, play with them, because sitting in the house all day, and then it says, okay, when they're outside, you can go play with her. And then that happened after 3 days. Oh my God. Until now, I feel like, I don't know. And then I was outside too, my son, and all the kids was playing. That time he was like almost 10 kids. There's 2 years old, 4 years old, my son, and everybody. And then I took my son, I don't want him to stay outside playing because he want to go to the streets and stuff like that. And Lela was there, she was there, all the other kids, they was on the street playing. And every time they're outside, I always go to the window, like look at what happened there, what's going on, what they're doing. And I was in the kitchen, but the door in the kitchen, you can see outside what's going on. And then it's the time I saw Lela outside, and then this is like, oh, call for help. And then I said, okay, what's going on? Maybe that's why I was thinking the dog was playing with her. And then I know Lela, she's like kind of shy. She's not the kind of person who open, like, I said, okay, maybe that's why the dog tried to play with her. That's why she's screaming. And then that's the time I want her and there. When oh my God, this is a blood all over the floor, and then I don't know what to do. And I tried to grab the dog on the leash, and then on the connector was on the neck to pull it. Her door was open. Lela was in front. That's the thing, I don't know, I keep asking myself. Lela was in front of her door, keep screaming for her. And then I said, okay, why nobody don't even heard Lela screaming? And then that's the time when I was outside, she came out and then opened the dog mouth to get, because I couldn't, because the way the dog, I'm already scared myself of that dog. And then when I saw the blood, I feel like, I don't know, Layla keeps screaming, Mommy, please take me to the hospital, take me to, like I took Layla. And then one of the neighbors tried to call 911. I said, I'm not gonna wait until the ambulance come here, let me take her to the patient first. And then that's the time I took Layla there.
Okay.
The things, do you guys want me to keep going on the story?
No, that's, I
or-
think we have a pretty good idea
Okay.
what happened. Okay, do you all have any questions of the Durans or Officer Thomas?
I don't have questions. I have obviously my side and my
Okay.
statement, as well as what has continued since that day.
Okay. Go
So,
ahead.
as was stated earlier, I am a veterinary technician with the U.S. Army, have been for 11 years, and have worked for many years exclusively with the military working dog program. I've actually done a couple of bite demonstrations with some of the officers of Anne Arundel County up until a few months ago. So I've been working with dogs even before the military. I was a technician for 2 years. Our friends, who I have a sworn statement from, notarized statement, were in contact with the woman who had Wyatt at the rescue up in Delaware. So they called me and said, this dog is a year old, he's still a puppy. We've been told that he has serious interest in children's feet. He's never bitten anyone, but he has like a shoe fetish. And because of this fetish, they don't have time to work with him. Is it possible for you to take him and work on his training and get this better so that this 1-year-old puppy doesn't end up euthanized for something that he just didn't have training on? So I said, okay, fine. We would take him. We brought him home and had him for about 3 weeks before this incident happened. We had a shock collar that we had obtained in case he ever had an issue going after kids. We have our 2 dogs, a cat, a snake. He was in my landlord's, they own our home. He was over at their home for temperament testing before we could ever accept him. They've got a little 8-pound dog, a bigger dog, a snake, 2 rabbits, chickens, children, birds. So we wanted to make sure this was not going to be a problem. Aside from that, within our community, we are continuously having issues with children from next door, from both sides, from across the street, and Alejandro, which I'd spoken with his mother about, jumping the fence, coming into our back Florida room, which doesn't have a lock on it because, it's a porch, just continuously in and out of our yard. So, and opening fences, trying to play with the dogs. Nicholas, who I believe is about 4, is always asking, can he come play with the dogs? It is correct. When we would walk them, we'd say, okay, we'd put them on a sit, a stay, let the kids come over and pet them, much for education on both sides. And the day that Layla was bitten, about an hour beforehand, I went into my back patio and found Alejandro he had jumped my fence, which had a padlock on that side, and there were clips, like manual, you have to open yourself clips on the other 2 gates. He had jumped the padlock, come into my Florida room, and when I said, what are you doing? He took off running and jumped the fence again and went back to their house. So I walked out and said, this is not safe. I have a 100-pound German Shepherd. I have these 3 dogs. You can't be jumping people's fences. And he said, well, I wanted to see the bulldog. And I said, well, that's not safe. You do not need to jump any fences. So about 45 minutes later, I took my daughter for ice cream, came home. I had locked myself out of my front door because I'm silly. So I went through my gate that had the clips, which is how I know it was shut. I opened my own gate. I let my daughter in, who's 6. I shut the gate, took her with me through the back door, and went inside. About 5 minutes later, I heard screams outside, which my first thought was, well, the kids are all playing because they're always screaming. And when it didn't stop in a couple of seconds, I jumped up, ran to the window, similar to what Leandra had said, saw what was happening, and with 13 years of working dog experience, I grabbed Wyatt, he released, took him back inside. So I came back outside, was looking at Layla's foot. I work at the Military Medical University teaching human doctors how to become doctors for the military and serve in combat. So I've seen, not that this was the most traumatic thing I've ever seen, but I've dealt with traumatic situations multiple times. So I talked to the parents. The mother is yelling at me, which is understandable. It's her child. Why do you have the dog? Why would you even have this dog? Why would you allow a dog in your house that might bite anyone? I'm saying, let's talk about your daughter. Well, she needs to go to the doctor. She's been bitten in a high infection area. She needs antibiotics for a dog bite. Let's deal with that. And the family, I couldn't understand a lot with what was saying. Layla's yelling, please take me to the hospital. I'm telling the parents, you really need to take her. She needs antibiotics, if nothing else. I told them, here is the dog's rabies information. Here's my phone number. Here is my home number. I was in charge of the rabies program for Fort Meade, Walter Reed, Fort Detrick, all the surrounding military installations, working with Officer Thomas for 3 years. I know the program. This is what you're going to need at the hospital. So the next day, or that night when they got back, the mother came back over, said she was sorry for yelling, which I told her, it's going to happen. Your child was injured. I understand that. I said that I have notified the rescue, and if I'm going to be unable to keep these children out of my yard, I'm not going to be able to continue training him, because it could potentially be bad for the neighborhood if the kids will not stay where they're supposed to be. And she said, well, I don't want you to have to get rid of your dog. And I said, well, that's neither here or there right now. The next day she came back. I gave her the rabies information again. And then I believe 2 days later, I heard from Officer Thomas. We discussed what had happened. I wrote up my statement, which I'm not sure if you gave him a copy of. I have as well, about everything that had happened. I also wrote in there, what had struck me as strange was the way my yard is set up, and you have pictures. I have a fence, a space, a side porch, and on that side porch there was a bottle of water that was screwed shut sitting up on my porch. That's not anything that we had bought. So not only, in my mind, this child has already been in my yard once, a visitor of their home, but now there's this water bottle has appeared on my yard. The clip was removed from my gate. My gate was open, and a little girl was bit within feet of my front yard. I'm not saying Layla got into my fence. I'm saying that I full-heartedly believe that someone was attempting to see the dog again and had let themselves in, and unfortunately she got bit. I tried to stay in contact with the family. I was checking on Layla. They go to the same school. After about a week, she was wearing shoes again. She told me that it had healed. She was doing fine. Everything was going well. She was smiling. And then on the 9th of May, my son came, he's 9 years old, came home in absolute hysterics because Layla was threatening him. And so I said, what happened? And he says, well, she told me if Wyatt gets released from the impound, she's
That's
going to get...
irrelevant. I'm going to object to that.
Okay.
It's hearsay. I don't have that child here.
Okay. So I went to the mother's house again. I said, I'm concerned that your daughter has threatened my son. And so she called Layla in, and Layla's exact words were, I didn't mean it, but I said it. And so her mother told me, well, my daughter has been injured and she can say what she wants. I said, this is not safe. If your daughter climbs my fence with 3 dogs, she's liable to get bit again. And she told me, well, then she guesses her kids can't play outside, but that she hoped that our kids could still remain friends. So after that, all right, on the 16th, we were notified that he could come back home, 16th of May, so he'd been in impound for 3 weeks. We had a couple of days of confusion trying to find a muzzle that would fit a 40-pound English bulldog, because he has a very small head, but he's still a bulldog, so he's funny shaped. And we were eventually able to bring him home. Since he's been home, we've had no more issues. I mean, we had my father-in-law died last month, which is why we couldn't come to court last month. We had to reschedule, and my landlords, because we couldn't figure out anything else to do, came over and watched him at our house, and we were just having to come back and forth and take care of him. I had called Miss Catlett and asked, could we take him with us to Oklahoma? Could I take him to my landlord's home? But because of stipulations in those 2 counties and trying to get, dog insurance and kennels and everything set up in the midst of someone dying is difficult. So they ended up just coming over and watching him at our house. Again, I brought a bunch of pictures I'd like people to be able to see. This is goofy little Wyatt rolling in the floor with my kids playing. My daughter walking him down the street with the leash dragging the floor between them because he's just a goofy little 16-month-old puppy. who, I mean, he doesn't have any issues, like I said, with my kids. When we've been working with him to make it where he doesn't have a fear of children, which is what I eventually deemed was every time like Nicholas would run at him, he'd freak out, bark, and hide behind me, which is fearful behavior in a dog. Like I said, since the bite incident, we continued to have issues where, especially Nicholas would be outside with no one but his sister and sometimes his cousin, and would still stick his arms through the fence and try and pet the dog. I would have him on a leash with his muzzle, and he'd run over and try and pet. On the 11th of June, it happened again. My husband and I were working in the front yard. We asked him and his sister to please stop. On the 12th, we were out in the yard again. The exact same thing happened. And again, we're like, you cannot do this. This is not safe. So we stayed in the front yard. About 5 minutes later, all 3 children disappeared around the side of our house. The dogs went crazy. The kids started screaming, and they ran into the house and shut the door. So I went I tried to knock on the door. I knocked for a few minutes. No one would answer me, so I called the police. And I have the paper from the county saying that, yes, the call was placed and that they were out there. That was the last time that we've had issues with them engaging with the dogs through the fence. But I mean, we've posted the property, we've got padlocks, we've got the auto closes, we've got the locked doors, we've got the insurance. I don't know what more to do to protect our family as well as their family if the children will not be controlled and advised to stay out of people's fences, because that's what this honestly comes down to. Furthermore, with Wyatt's training, he's doing so much better, but I can only do so much if he's not allowed to see people. So I cannot continue to desensitize him and teach him how to behave in public if I'm unable to take him out of the house. So yes, I can take him on walks in the neighborhood with a muzzle, but again, he's brachycephalic, which means he has a little bitty short face, he has trouble breathing. Putting him in a muzzle where he can't breathe, I can only keep him outside for a few minutes at a time. I can't take him to anyone's house that we know and trust because I'm not allowed to let him go to their houses without calling the county first. It puts him in a very odd position, and I feel mostly sorrowful for him because at 16 months old, he's now been labeled as a dangerous animal for an isolated incident with holes in it, and I can't even do anything to help him.